Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Intrepid, watching the swirling blue-green surface of Kepler 442b through the main viewport. After 18 months of deep space exploration, her crew had finally found what they were looking for, a planet that could support human life. The excitement was infectious. She could feel it radiating from every corner of the ship. "Initial scans are complete, Captain," announced Lieutenant Martinez from the science station. "Atmosphere composition is within acceptable parameters. Oxygen levels at 21%. Nitrogen at 77%. Temperature ranges from -10 to +35 Celsius depending on the region." Sarah nodded, allowing herself a small smile. "Any signs of intelligent life?" "Negative on intelligent life, but we're detecting complex ecosystems. Preliminary data suggests this world has been stable for millions of years." "It's perfect, Captain. Perfect." That word had been elusive for so long. Earth was dying, choked by centuries of industrial abuse and climate disasters. The United Earth government had invested everything into the colonial expansion program, sending dozens of ships like the Intrepid into the void in search of new homes for humanity. Most had found nothing but barren rocks or gas giants. Some had simply vanished into the cosmic dark. "Begin preparation for surface surveys," Sarah ordered. "I want landing parties ready within the hour. And Martinez, send a data burst back to Earth Command. Let them know we've found Eden too." As her crew bustled about their duties, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had done it. After traveling nearly 40 light-years from Earth, they had found humanity's new home. The journey had been worth every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every difficult decision. 3 decks below, Chief Engineer David Park was running his final diagnostics on the ship's systems. The Intrepid had performed admirably during their long journey, but space travel was unforgiving, and even the smallest malfunction could spell disaster for the crew of 300 souls aboard. "Reactor output stable at 93%, he reported to his assistant, Ensign Kelly. "Navigation systems nominal, life support operating within normal parameters, hull integrity." "Wait, that's odd." Kelly looked up from her console. "What is it, Chief?" David frowned at his readings. "I'm showing an anomalous energy signature, about 10,000 kilometers off our starboard bow. It's faint, almost imperceptible, but it's there." "Could be background radiation from the star," Kelly suggested. "No, this is artificial. Controlled. Almost like..." David's eyes widened. "Like a cloaked ship." The possibility sent chills down his spine. In all their years of space exploration, humanity had encountered only 3 alien species. The Zentari were peaceful traders who had shared basic faster-than-light technology with Earth decades ago. The Hive were insectoid creatures who kept to themselves in distant sectors, and then there were the Krell. Nobody talked about the Krell incident. The details were classified beyond David's clearance level, but rumors persisted throughout the fleet. A first contact gone wrong. Ships lost. Entire colonies that went silent overnight. Whatever had happened, it had made Earth Command extremely cautious about new encounters. David's fingers flew over his console, trying to get a clearer reading on the energy signature. The pattern was unlike anything in their databases, not Zentari, not Hive, and definitely not human. This was something new. "Kelly, I need you to run a silent scan on these coordinates," he said, transmitting the data to her station. "Use passive sensors only. If there really is someone out there, I don't want them to know we've detected them." While Kelly worked, David opened a secure channel to the bridge. "Captain Chen, this is engineering. We may have company." Sarah's voice crackled back immediately. "Explain." "I'm detecting what appears to be a cloaked vessel, approximately 10,000 kilometers from our position. The energy signature is unknown, definitely not in our databases." There was a long pause. "Are you certain, Chief?" 90% certain, Captain. The readings are faint, but consistent, with active camouflage technology." Another pause. Longer this time. Sarah was thinking, weighing options. David knew she was considering the same possibilities he was. If there was indeed an alien vessel out there, why was it hiding? Why not make contact? In David's experience, beings who preferred to remain hidden usually had reasons that didn't bode well for those being watched. Continue monitoring, Sarah finally replied. I want to know the moment anything changes. And Chief, keep this between us for now. No sense causing panic until we know more. Understood, Captain. David closed the channel and turned back to his scans. Kelly had refined the sensor array, and the results made his blood run cold. The energy signature wasn't from one ship, it was from at least 12, maybe more. They were completely surrounded. Chief, Kelly whispered, staring at her screen. Look at these power readings. Whatever these ships are, they're massive. Each one is at least twice the size of the Intrepid. David felt his mouth go dry. 12 ships, each twice their size, all hidden by advanced cloaking technology. This wasn't a casual encounter or a peaceful first contact. This was a trap. He was reaching for the comm system when every alarm on the ship began screaming at once. Hull breach on Deck 7. Someone shouted over the communications array. Intruder alert. Unknown hostiles aboard. Came another voice. Captain, we're being boarded. This was Security Chief Williams, his voice tight with controlled panic. David watched his monitors in horror as the ship's internal sensors showed the impossible. Somehow, beings had materialized inside the Intrepid without triggering the external proximity alarms. Advanced teleportation technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. Kelly, initiate lockdown protocols, David ordered. Seal all critical areas and prepare for emergency evacuation of the engine room. The young ensign's hands shook as she worked. Chief, how did they get aboard without us detecting them? I don't know. But we need to protect the reactor core at all costs. If they gain control of our power systems... His words were cut off as the lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. David's worst fears were realized when his console showed that someone had accessed the main computer core. They weren't just being invaded, they were being systematically taken over. On the bridge, Captain Sarah Chen was fighting a battle she couldn't win. The intruders had appeared without warning, materializing through the bulkheads as if they were made of fog. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, with elongated limbs and heads that seemed too large for their narrow bodies. Their skin was a mottled gray-green color, and their eyes were large and black, reflecting no emotion Sarah could recognize. Surrender your vessel. One of them spoke, its voice carrying an odd harmonic quality that made Sarah's teeth ache. Your resistance is futile. Right. Your resistance is futile. Like hell, Sarah snarled, drawing her sidearm. Around her, the bridge crew was doing the same, but their weapons seemed pitifully inadequate against beings who could walk through solid matter. Lieutenant Martinez managed to get off 3 shots before one of the intruders raised a device that looked like a crystalline wand. Martinez simply stopped moving, frozen in place like a statue. He was still breathing, still conscious, but completely immobilized. Your weapons cannot harm us, the alien continued. Your technology is primitive. You will surrender, or your crew will suffer. Sarah kept her weapon trained on the speaker, even knowing it was useless. What do you want? Your ship? Your navigation data? Your knowledge of human space? The alien's head tilted slightly. You have found something valuable here. We will take it. Redound. The truth hit Sarah like a physical blow. These beings hadn't stumbled across the Intrepid by accident. They had been waiting, watching, following the human exploration fleet. They knew about Earth's colonial expansion program. They knew humanity was desperate for new worlds, and they intended to steal everything humanity had worked for. You can't just take our ship, Sarah said, trying to buy time. Our government will notice when we don't report in. They'll send other vessels. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Your government will receive reports. Your ship will continue to send data. But the intelligence behind those transmissions will be ours. Sarah felt ice form in her veins. They weren't just stealing the ship, they were planning to use it as a Trojan horse against Earth. Whatever these beings were planning, it went far beyond simple piracy. The alien raised its crystalline device again, and Sarah felt her muscles lock in place. She could see her crew around her, all frozen in the same manner, conscious but helpless. As her vision began to blur, she heard the alien speaking to others of its kind. Begin the data extraction. I want everything: star charts, military codes, colony locations. The humans have done the exploration for us. Now we will reap the benefits. The last thing Sarah saw before darkness claimed her was alien hands working at her ship's control consoles, downloading the accumulated knowledge of humanity's greatest journey into space. When she woke, she was in a cramped cell with the rest of her senior staff. The walls were made of the same crystalline material as the aliens' weapons, and no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't break through or even scratch the surface. "How long were we out?" she asked Chief Williams, who seemed the most alert. "Best guess?" "About 6 hours. I can hear the ship's engines running, but the vibration pattern is all wrong. They've modified our propulsion system somehow." Dr. Susan Reeves, the ship's medical officer, looked up from examining Lieutenant Martinez. "They've done something to our biology too. I'm reading trace amounts of some kind of neural inhibitor in all our bloodstreams. Nothing fatal, but it explains why we were paralyzed so easily." Sarah forced herself to think clearly despite the situation. "What's our status? How many crew members are accounted for?" "That's the bad news, Captain," Williams replied grimly. "We're missing 43 people, all from engineering and technical divisions. The aliens took our best and brightest." The implications were staggering. Not only had these beings stolen her ship, but they had kidnapped the crew members most capable of understanding and replicating human technology. This wasn't random piracy, it was a carefully planned intelligence operation. "They're going to use our people to reverse engineer our technology," Sarah realized aloud. "And they're going to use our ship to infiltrate human space." Dr. Reeves nodded grimly. "From what I overheard before they brought us here, they're planning to approach other human colonies using the Intrepid's identity codes. No one will suspect a thing until it's too late." Sarah clenched her fists, feeling rage building inside her chest. These aliens had not just attacked her crew, they had betrayed everything humanity stood for. The peaceful exploration of space, the hope for new worlds, the dream of expanding human civilization among the stars. All of it was being turned into a weapon against her own species. She looked around the cramped cell at her remaining crew. Fear was visible in their eyes. But she also saw something else: determination. These were men and women who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. They had left everything behind to venture into the unknown for the good of their species. They weren't going to give up now. "Listen to me," Sarah said quietly, gathering her officers around her. "I don't know how yet, but we're going to escape. We're going to retake our ship, and we're going to make sure these bastards regret the day they decided to prey on humanity." Chief Williams managed a grim smile. "What do you have in mind, Captain?" "I'm working on it," Sarah replied. But privately she wondered if they had any hope at all. The aliens' technology was clearly superior to anything humanity possessed. Their weapons, their ships, their ability to phase through solid matter, all of it was beyond human science. But humanity had one advantage that these aliens might not understand. When backed into a corner, when facing impossible odds, when everything they held dear was threatened, humans had a tendency to fight with a ferocity that surprised everyone, including themselves. Sarah Chen had no intention of disappointing that reputation. 3 days later, the stolen UES Intrepid dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Tau Ceti system, where humanity had established its first successful colony outside the Sol system. To any external observer, it was simply another Earth vessel returning from deep space exploration. No one suspected that the ship now carried the seeds of humanity's destruction within its hull. No one realized that 43 human beings were imprisoned aboard their own vessel, while alien minds worked feverishly to decode the secrets of human civilization. And no one knew that in the depths of space, an emergency beacon had been quietly activated by Chief Engineer David Park just moments before his capture. A beacon that would eventually lead to consequences these alien raiders could never have imagined. The stolen ship was indeed sailing toward its owner's doom, but not in the way the thieves intended. Admiral Jack Morrison was enjoying his first cup of coffee in 36 hours when the emergency klaxon began blaring throughout Earth Command headquarters. He set down his mug with practiced calm and made his way to the Situation Room, where a dozen of his best officers were already assembled around a holographic display table. "Report," Morrison commanded, as he took his position at the head of the table. Commander Lisa Hayes, his intelligence chief, gestured to the swirling star map floating above the table. "Sir, we've received an automated distress beacon from the UES Intrepid. The signal is faint and heavily degraded, but our cryptographers have managed to decode most of the message." Morrison's jaw tightened. The Intrepid was one of their most advanced exploration vessels, carrying some of the best minds in the fleet. Captain Sarah Chen was a personal friend, and the thought of her ship in trouble made his stomach clench. "What's their status?" "That's where it gets complicated, sir." Hayes manipulated the display, zooming in on a section of space near Kepler 442b. The beacon was triggered from inside the ship's engineering section, but it wasn't sent by any of the command staff. Chief Engineer Park managed to hard-code it into a routine maintenance transmission. Morrison studied the data scrolling beside the star map. Clever man. What did he tell us? Hostile boarding action. Unknown alien species with advanced technology including teleportation and matter phase capabilities. The ship was compromised within minutes of first contact. 43 crew members were taken prisoner, including key technical personnel. The room fell silent. In 50 years of human space exploration, there had never been a successful boarding action against a military vessel. The implications were staggering. "Is the Intrepid still under alien control?" Morrison asked. Commander Hayes nodded grimly. "Intelligence suggests yes, sir. But here's the truly concerning part. Long-range sensors detected the Intrepid approaching the Tau Ceti colony 3 days ago. It's being used to infiltrate human space." Morrison felt his blood run cold. Tau Ceti was home to nearly 1 million colonists, and its defensive systems would never fire on an approaching Earth vessel if hostile aliens were using the Intrepid as camouflage. "Get me Admiral Zhang at Tau Ceti Command immediately," Morrison ordered. "And I want every available ship in the vicinity of that system." While his staff worked to establish communications, Morrison studied the data from Park's beacon. The aliens had technology that humanity could barely comprehend: matter phasing, teleportation, neural paralysis, weapons, but they had also made a critical mistake. They had underestimated human ingenuity. "Admiral," Hayes called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Tau Ceti. Admiral Zhang is standing by." Well, the holographic display shifted to show the face of Admiral Zhang Wei, commander of the Colonial Defense Force. His expression was grim, and Morrison could see the lights of active ships through the viewport behind him. "Jack, thank God you called," Zhang said without preamble. "The Intrepid arrived here 2 days ago and requested permission to dock for resupply. Something felt wrong about the whole thing." "Wrong how?" "Captain Chen requested permission to download our complete colonial database, including military codes and defensive positions. When I questioned the request, she became insistent. The conversation patterns were all wrong, too formal, too precise. It didn't sound like Sarah at all." Morrison nodded. He had known Sarah Chen for 15 years, and she would never make such a request without proper authorization. "What's their current status?" "We granted them dock access but limited their computer linkage. My security teams are conducting what I'm calling routine inspections, but they're actually trying to determine what happened to the crew." "And what did you find?" Zhang's expression darkened. "Nothing good. The ship's internal sensors show human life signs, but they're all concentrated in the lower cargo areas. Meanwhile, we're detecting unknown biological signatures on the bridge and in key systems areas." Morrison absorbed this information. The aliens were keeping the human crew alive, probably to maintain the illusion that the ship was operating normally. But they had clearly taken control of all critical systems. "Admiral Zhang, I'm declaring the Intrepid a hostile vessel. Implement full quarantine procedures immediately." Already done, Jack. But there's something else you need to know. Zhang paused, glancing at someone off-screen. My technical teams managed to plant a scanning device on the Intrepid's hull. The readings we're getting suggest the ship has been significantly modified. New power systems, enhanced communication arrays, and what appears to be weapons technology we've never seen before. The implications hit Morrison like a hammer blow. The aliens weren't just using the Intrepid to infiltrate human space, they were turning it into a weapon. A Trojan horse that could destroy human civilization from within. How long until our nearest battle group can reach Tau Ceti? Morrison asked his staff. 18 hours for the 5th Fleet, sir, replied Commander Hayes. Morrison shook his head. Too long. Admiral Zhang, you need to take action now. I understand the situation, Jack, but I have to consider my colonists. If I attack the Intrepid and they retaliate, they're going to retaliate anyway. Morrison interrupted. The only question is whether we let them do it on their terms or ours. Before Zhang could respond, alarms began blaring in the background of his transmission. An officer ran into view, speaking rapidly in Chinese. Zhang's face went pale. Jack, we have a problem. The Intrepid just launched 12 small craft. Our sensors can't get a lock on them, they're using some kind of stealth technology. Morrison watched in horror as Zhang's transmission became unstable. In the background, he could see explosions lighting up the space around the colony. The alien attack had begun. Admiral Zhang, respond, Morrison shouted, but the connection was dead. Morrison turned to his staff, his mind racing. If Tau Ceti fell, it would be a strategic disaster. But more than that, it would be a betrayal of everything humanity stood for. Those colonists had trusted Earth Command to protect them, and now they were paying the price for humanity's ignorance of the alien threat. Commander Hayes, I want every ship we have converging on Tau Ceti immediately, and I want a message sent to all colonial administrators assume any approaching Earth vessel has been compromised until proven otherwise. Sir, that will cause chaos across human space, Hayes protested. Trade routes, supply lines, communication networks. Better chaos than extinction, Morrison replied coldly. These aliens have been planning this for who knows how long. The Intrepid might not be the only ship they've taken. As his staff worked to implement his orders, Morrison found himself thinking about the bigger picture. Humanity had always assumed that if they encountered hostile aliens, it would be a straightforward military conflict, ships against ships, weapons against weapons. They had never considered the possibility of an enemy that could steal their own vessels and turn them against human colonies. It was a terrifyingly effective strategy. How could humanity defend against an enemy that looked exactly like them? Admiral, one of his junior officers called out. We're receiving emergency transmissions from 3 other colonial systems. Ships matching the description of Earth vessels have approached their defensive perimeters, but the identification codes aren't matching our databases. Morrison felt his worst fears being confirmed. This wasn't just about the Intrepid, it was about a coordinated assault on human civilization, using humanity's own ships as weapons. How many vessels are we talking about? At least 7 confirmed, sir, possibly more. It seems like they've been building a fleet, using stolen Earth ships. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. These aliens had been operating in human space for months, maybe years, quietly capturing vessels and turning them into weapons. The Intrepid had simply been the latest acquisition in a larger plan. Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. His face appeared on screens throughout human space, on military vessels, colonial outposts, trading stations, and exploration ships. This is Admiral Morrison of Earth Command. I am declaring a code black emergency throughout all human space. We have confirmed that hostile alien forces have captured multiple Earth vessels and are using them to attack our colonies. Any ship approaching your position should be treated as potentially hostile, regardless of identification codes. He paused, knowing that his next words would fundamentally change how humanity operated in space. All fleet commanders are authorized to use deadly force against any vessel that cannot provide verified biological confirmation of human crew. We are at war with an enemy that steals our ships and murders our people. From this moment forward, trust no one and question everything. The transmission ended, and Morrison slumped back in his chair. In the span of 30 minutes, he had turned humanity's greatest strength, their ability to work together across vast distances, into a liability. But it was the only way to prevent these aliens from destroying human civilization one stolen ship at a time. "Sir," Commander Hayes said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from Captain Reynolds of the UES Defiance. They're 3 hours out from Tau Ceti. Put him through." Captain Marcus Reynolds appeared on the display, his weathered face showing the stress of the situation. "Admiral, I've been monitoring the emergency channels. My crew is ready for whatever we find at Tau Ceti." "Captain, I want you to understand something clearly," Morrison said. "The Intrepid is no longer an Earth vessel. It's a weapon being used against us. When you engage, show no mercy." Reynolds nodded grimly. "Understood, sir. What about survivors?" It was the question Morrison had been dreading. Sarah Chen and her crew were trapped aboard that ship, probably still alive but helpless to escape. In a normal military situation, the prime directive would be to rescue them. But this wasn't a normal military situation. Rescue if possible. But mission priorities are clear. Stop that ship from attacking any more colonies. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Copy that, Admiral. Defiance out. As the transmission ended, Morrison found himself staring at the star map, watching the red dots that represented stolen Earth vessels moving through human space like a cancer. Each dot represented hundreds of human lives at risk, and potentially thousands more in danger from whatever these aliens were planning. But humanity had one advantage these aliens might not have considered. When pushed to the brink, when facing extinction, humans had a tendency to fight with a savagery that surprised even themselves. And right now, every human in space was very, very angry. 3 hours later, Captain Marcus Reynolds dropped his ship out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. What he saw there made his blood boil. The colonial orbital stations were burning. Debris from destroyed defense platforms drifted through space like metallic snowflakes. And in the middle of it all, the UES Intrepid hung motionless, its hull scarred from battle but otherwise intact. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "I'm reading massive casualties on the colony worlds. Best estimates suggest 20,000 dead. Maybe more." Reynolds felt rage building in his chest. 20,000 innocent colonists, murdered by aliens using a stolen human ship. It was an atrocity that demanded justice. "Target the Intrepid," he ordered. "Full spread of quantum torpedoes." "Sir, there may still be human survivors aboard." "I said target the Intrepid," Reynolds repeated coldly. "Those aliens chose to use our own ship against us. Now they get to learn what happens when you steal from humanity." As the Defiance's weapons locked onto their target, Reynolds opened a channel to the stolen vessel. "Attention hostile forces aboard the UES Intrepid. You have 30 seconds to surrender and release any human prisoners, or we will open fire." The response came in the same harmonic voice that had haunted Captain Chen's nightmares. "Your threats are meaningless, human. We have claimed this vessel and this system. You cannot stop us." Reynolds smiled coldly. "That's where you're wrong. See, you made one critical mistake when you decided to steal our ship and murder our people. You assumed we would show you the same mercy you showed our colonists." He turned to his weapons officer. "Fire." The space around the Intrepid lit up with the fury of human vengeance. As quantum torpedoes streaked toward their target, the stolen ship's shields flared and died under the assault. Secondary explosions began rippling across its hull. But Reynolds wasn't finished. This was about more than just one ship. It was about sending a message to every alien species in the galaxy. Humanity was not prey. Humanity would not be stolen from without consequence. "Continue firing," he ordered. "I want that ship reduced to component atoms." As the Intrepid died under the relentless bombardment, Reynolds thought about Admiral Morrison's words. Show no mercy. It was a lesson these aliens had taught humanity through their own actions. Now it was time for the students to become the teachers. Captain Sarah Chen felt the ship shudder as the first torpedo impacts struck the hull. The crystalline walls of her prison flickered and dimmed as power fluctuations ran through the stolen vessel. Around her, the remaining members of her crew looked up with expressions of desperate hope. "That's human weapons fire," Chief Williams said with grim satisfaction. "Someone found us." Sarah pressed her face against the transparent barrier, trying to see what was happening outside their cell. Through the ship's internal communication system, she could hear the alien crew speaking in their harmonic language, but now there was something new in their voices: panic. "Captain," Dr. Reeves whispered urgently, "look at the walls." Sarah turned to see that the crystalline material of their prison was developing hairline cracks. The alien technology that had seemed so impervious was failing under the stress of battle damage. "When this barrier fails," Sarah said quietly, gathering her officers around her, "we move fast. Our first priority is reaching the bridge and sending a signal to identify any surviving crew members. Our second priority is making sure this ship never threatens another human colony." Another massive impact shook the vessel, and larger cracks appeared in their cell walls. Through the ship's superstructure, they could hear the sounds of alien crew members running through corridors, their footsteps creating an odd clicking rhythm on the metal floors. With a sound like breaking glass, the crystalline barrier finally collapsed. Sarah was the first one through, followed by her senior staff. The corridor outside was dimly lit by emergency power, and she could see blast damage scarring the walls where internal explosions had occurred. The ship was dying, but it wasn't dead yet. "This way," she commanded, leading them toward the nearest maintenance shaft. They had built this ship, after all. They knew its every corridor, every access panel, every shortcut between decks. As they crawled through the tight spaces between bulkheads, Sarah could hear the battle raging outside. Whoever had found them was not holding back. The sound of continuous weapons fire suggested that their rescuers had come prepared for war. They emerged on Deck 4, just 2 levels below the bridge. Sarah peered around the corner and saw 3 of the tall alien figures operating some kind of control console. Their movements seemed frantic, desperate. "They're trying to signal their fleet," she realized. "We can't let them call for reinforcements." Chief Williams examined the aliens' equipment. "That looks like a quantum communication array. If they manage to transmit our location to their home base." Sarah didn't need him to finish the thought. Earth's location would be compromised, and humanity would face invasion by a species that had already proven capable of stealing ships and infiltrating human space. "Can we disable it?" Williams studied the setup for a moment. "Not quietly. But if we overload the power conduits in this section—" "Do it," Sarah ordered, "and make it look like battle damage." As Williams worked to sabotage the communication array, Sarah led the rest of her team toward the bridge. The corridors were eerily quiet now, broken only by the groaning of stressed metal and the distant sound of weapons fire from outside. They reached the bridge to find it deserted except for one alien figure hunched over the navigation console. Sarah recognized him as the one who had spoken during the initial boarding action. "The leader of this group, step away from the controls," Sarah commanded, her voice carrying all the authority of a starship captain. The alien turned slowly, its large black eyes reflecting no emotion. "Human, you should be dead." "You made a lot of mistakes when you took my ship," Sarah replied coldly. "But the biggest one was assuming we would just lie down and die quietly." The alien raised one of its crystalline weapons, but Sarah was faster. She dove to the side as the neural paralysis beam swept through the space where she had been standing. Behind her, Dr. Reeves and Lieutenant Martinez flanked the creature from both sides. "Your weapons only work on unprotected nervous systems," Dr. Reeves said with satisfaction. "I've been working on a neural blocker using components from our medical equipment." The alien's head tilted in what might have been confusion. "Impossible. Your technology is primitive." "You know what's not primitive?" Sarah asked, pulling a plasma cutter from an emergency kit. "This." The tool was designed for cutting through damaged bulkheads during emergencies, but it worked just as well on alien flesh. The creature's scream had a harmonic quality that made Sarah's ears ring, but she didn't stop until the threat was neutralized. "Captain," Martinez called from the communication station, "I'm reading 15 more alien vessels approaching this position. ETA, 12 minutes. Sarah's blood ran cold. They had managed to reclaim their ship, but it was too late. The alien fleet was coming, and Earth's forces wouldn't stand a chance against that many vessels with advanced technology. But then she noticed something on the tactical display that made her smile grimly. "Martinez, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" The lieutenant studied his sensors more carefully. "Captain, those ships, they're all of human design. They're using our own fleet against us." Sarah felt rage building in her chest again, but this time it was cold and calculating. These aliens hadn't just stolen the Intrepid, they had been systematically capturing human vessels for months, building a fleet that could destroy Earth while wearing humanity's own face. "Get me a channel to whoever's attacking us," she ordered. A moment later, the scarred face of Captain Reynolds appeared on the main screen. "Intrepid, this is Captain Reynolds of the UES Defiance. Identify yourself immediately." "Marcus, it's Sarah Chen. We've retaken the bridge, but we have a bigger problem. 15 more stolen Earth vessels are approaching this position, all under alien control." Reynolds' expression shifted from suspicion to grim understanding. "Jesus, Sarah. How long has this been going on?" "Long enough for them to build a fleet," Sarah replied. "And they were planning to use it to attack Earth directly." She transmitted the data they had recovered from the alien communication system. Reynolds studied the information with growing horror. "They've mapped our entire colonial network," he said. "Every supply route, every defensive position, every weakness in our coverage." Sarah nodded. "They were going to use our own ships to destroy every human settlement in space, then move on Earth itself. But Marcus, they made one critical error." "What's that?" Sarah's smile was predatory. "They assumed we wouldn't be willing to destroy our own ships to stop them." The implications of her statement hung in the air between them. To stop this alien fleet, humanity would have to fire on vessels that had once carried their own people, ships that represented years of effort and resources. But the alternative was the extinction of human civilization. "Sarah, are there survivors on those ships?" "Probably," she admitted. "But if we let sentiment stop us, we'll all be dead anyway. These aliens don't take prisoners, they take hostages. And they use our compassion against us." Reynolds was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was hard as steel. "Understood. All ships, this is Captain Reynolds. We have confirmed that hostile aliens are using captured Earth vessels to attack human colonies. Rules of engagement are now weapons-free on all targets." As the alien fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Sarah watched through the Intrepid's sensors as the UES Defiance opened fire without warning or mercy. Quantum torpedoes streaked through space, targeting the lead vessel, a ship Sarah recognized as the UES Columbia, which had been reported missing 6 months earlier. The Columbia's shields flared and died under the assault. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull as the ship that had once carried 300 human souls was reduced to drifting debris. "One down, 14 to go," Reynolds reported coldly. Sarah watched as more human ships arrived in the system, the Fifth Fleet, responding to Admiral Morrison's emergency orders. 23 Earth vessels against 14 stolen ones. But the aliens' technological advantages made it a more even fight than the numbers suggested. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. Ships that had been built to explore the stars and protect human colonies were locked in mortal combat against twisted versions of themselves. Weapons that had been designed to defend humanity were being used to attack human positions. But the aliens had underestimated something fundamental about human nature. When threatened with extinction, when their backs were against the wall, when everything they held dear was at stake, humans were capable of savage brutality that surprised even themselves. "Captain Chen," came Admiral Morrison's voice over the communication system. "This is Earth Command. We're tracking 17 more stolen vessels moving toward the Sol system." Sarah felt her blood turn to ice. The aliens weren't just attacking the outer colonies, they were going after Earth itself. "How long until they reach Earth, Admiral?" 16 hours, assuming they maintain current speed." Sarah looked around her reclaimed bridge at the faces of her crew. They had been through hell, had watched their ship be stolen and their crewmates kidnapped, but they were still alive, still fighting, and still human. Admiral, request permission to pursue. Captain, your ship is heavily damaged and your crew has been through. My crew has been through hell, Sarah interrupted. And now we want to return the favor. These bastards stole our ship, murdered our colonies, and threatened our home world. We're not asking for permission to run away. We're asking for permission to finish what they started. There was a long pause before Morrison responded. Permission granted, Captain. Give them hell. As the Intrepid limped away from the battle zone, its hull scarred but its weapons still functional, Sarah looked at the tactical display showing the approaching alien fleet. 17 more stolen ships, all heading toward Earth with the intent to destroy humanity's homeworld. She thought about the 20,000 colonists who had died at Tau Ceti. She thought about her captured crew members who were probably dead by now. She thought about the arrogance of a species that believed they could steal from humanity without consequence. Set course for Earth, she ordered. Maximum speed. Captain, Chief Williams asked quietly, what's the plan? Sarah's smile was cold as winter in space. We're going to teach these aliens why human beings have a reputation for being the most vindictive species in the galaxy. They wanted to steal our ships? Fine. Let's show them what happens when you steal from the wrong species. The journey to Earth took 14 hours, during which time Sarah and her crew worked frantically to repair their ship and modify its weapons systems. They had learned much about alien technology during their imprisonment, and now they intended to use that knowledge against their former captors. When they dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, they found chaos. The stolen alien fleet was engaged in a running battle with Earth's defensive forces above Mars. The red planet's orbital shipyards were burning, and debris from destroyed vessels drifted through space like a metal graveyard. Captain, Martinez reported, Earth Defense Command is requesting our assistance. But they're also warning us that they'll fire on any ship that can't provide biological verification of its crew. Sarah understood their caution. How could Earth's defenders tell the difference between a real human ship and one controlled by aliens wearing human faces? Open a channel to Earth Defense Command, she ordered. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Intrepid. We are the original crew. We have reclaimed our vessel, and we have a plan to stop this attack. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the screen, his expression showing the stress of the ongoing battle. Captain Chen, thank God you're alive. We're taking heavy casualties up here. Admiral, I need you to listen carefully. These aliens have one weakness: they rely too heavily on stolen technology. They don't really understand how our ships work. They just know how to operate them. What are you suggesting? Sarah's smile was predatory. I'm suggesting we teach them the difference between using something and understanding it. She transmitted a data packet to Earth Command technical specifications for a computer virus that her engineering team had developed based on their observations of alien technology integration. This virus will propagate through any system that has alien modifications, she explained. It will cause cascade failures in their hybrid technology, but it has to be delivered directly to their command ship. Morrison studied the data for a moment. Captain, this is a suicide mission. To get close enough to upload that virus. Admiral, Sarah interrupted. They stole my ship. They killed my crew. They threatened my home world. I'm not looking for survival. I'm looking for justice. The truth was simpler and more human than that. Sarah Chen was angry. Not just angry, she was furious with the cold, calculating rage that humans were capable of when they felt they had been betrayed. The aliens had violated every rule of civilized contact. They had used humanity's own peaceful nature against them. Now it was time to show them what happened when you pushed humanity too far. All ships, this is the Intrepid. Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. We're making a direct assault on the alien command vessel. When you see our ship's destruction, be ready to exploit the confusion. She didn't wait for a response. The Intrepid accelerated toward the center of the alien formation, its damaged hull groaning under the stress but its human heart still beating strong. As they approached the lead vessel, a ship that had once been the UES Enterprise, Sarah looked around her bridge one last time. Her crew was at their stations, ready to die for their homeworld if necessary. It's been an honor serving with you all, she said quietly. Chief Williams looked up from his console. "Captain, the virus is ready for upload. Do it." The computer virus spread through the alien command network like wildfire. Within seconds, stolen human ships throughout the fleet began experiencing cascade failures as their hybrid alien-human systems collapsed. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before suddenly found themselves dead in space. The alien crew members, dependent on their stolen technology, were helpless as their vessels' life support systems failed. The same neural paralysis weapons they had used against humanity now turned against them as their own ship systems malfunctioned. But the virus did more than just disable ships. It sent a signal, a message that propagated through the alien fleet's quantum communication network all the way back to their home world. The message was simple and devastating. Humanity remembers. As the alien fleet died around them, Sarah Chen watched through her viewports as Earth's defenders moved in to finish the job. There would be no mercy shown, no prisoners taken, no quarter given. The aliens had taught humanity a hard lesson about the nature of the universe. But in return, they had learned something about the nature of humanity that they would never forget. When you steal from humans, when you betray their trust, when you threaten their homes and families, they don't just fight back. They make sure you never threaten anyone ever again. The stolen ships had indeed become their doom, but not in the way their captors had intended. They had awakened something in humanity that had been dormant since the species first left Earth. The predatory instinct that had once made humans the apex predator on their home world. Now that instinct had been unleashed among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the wreckage of the alien fleet, search and rescue teams found evidence of the scope of their operation. For over 2 years, they had been systematically capturing human vessels and using them to map human space. The plan had been to replace Earth's entire colonial fleet with alien-controlled duplicates, then use those ships to destroy human civilization from within. It had been a perfect plan, except for one thing. They had underestimated the human capacity for righteous fury when pushed beyond all reasonable limits. The alien species later identified as the Kithara never recovered from humanity's retaliation. Within a year, human fleets had tracked them to their home system and delivered the same message they had tried to deliver to Earth. But humans, it turned out, were much better at it. The galaxy learned an important lesson from the destruction of the Kithara. Humanity was peaceful by choice, not weakness. And that choice could be revoked without notice when circumstances warranted it. No species ever again attempted to steal human ships. Some lessons, after all, only needed to be taught once.